Hey everybody, the captain here, and something has been happening. It's been happening quite some time, and I like to. What am I sitting on? Oh, gun holster. Get that out of the way. There. Much better. And I like to keep things relatively up to date and give the best advice possible, and it's very important, especially when what applied, I give you advice A, but then all of a sudden things change that advice A is no longer advice A, but should be complete and opposite advice B. And one such thing is getting your CPA. Now, in my book Worth Listening, my general recommendations, I recommend that accounting is a good field. I still think accounting is a good field in that it will find you a job. But the CPA is something different. It's the certification that you get to become like a super accountant. And back in the day, it was definitely worth considering getting. However, things have changed now to the point that I'm worried about progressive credentialism. And so let me make my point here. I found this article a while ago when I wrote it. You can look it up on my blog. It's called 10 Years of Unnecessary Hoop Jumping. But I'll read this excerpt. The article is no longer there. The CPA magazine called Footnotes, they took it down. And I think, truthfully, I'm going to permit myself a little bit of bravado. I think I scared the piss out of them because I exposed them what I'm going to talk about here. Longtime Minnesota CPA member and former Minnesota CPA board chair. Now, this guy was on the fucking board. Walt Coughskey passed away on June 28th. He was 94 years old. With no money for college, this is very key, Walt worked various jobs until deciding to study and sit for the CPA exam in 1951. He was working physically demanding jobs, said his son, John, also a CPA and Minnesota CPA member. A high school, quote again, a high school counselor had recommended accounting at one time, so he decided he should explore it. Now, I highlight this part. Even without a college degree, Walt was allowed to sit for the CPA exam. He was awarded certificate number 603 in Minnesota. He was very proud of that, said John. I also highlight this next part. Walt began working as a CPA for Heyer Flesher and Company in Minneapolis in 1951. He became partner working until he and another partner left the firm to form Coughskey and Schnobrich. None of these accountants have easy names, frankly. There's this thing, what was it? Behuz. Boule, Hoytmacher, and Ziebel. I mean, good Lord, you can't forget that name. I guess it's good marketing. Due in part to his great reputation for ethical conduct, the firm was asked to merge with Touche Roche, now Deloitte and Touche, right? We've heard of them. Throughout his career, Walt was an active Minnesota CPA member, serving as board chair from 1964 to 1965, and on many other committees, and volunteering for the IRS's Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program for more than 20 years. He was Minnesota's CPA's oldest living past chair. All right, now, the whole thing to gain from this is the dude didn't go to college. And the dude was still allowed to sit for the CPA exam. He passed, and then he went on to have a spectacular and impeccable career in accounting. And this is what the great thing about certifications like the CPA was. It doesn't matter whether you went to college or not. It didn't matter whether you have a master's or an undergrad or a GPA or anything like that. Do you pass the test, yes or no? It measures your skill, your ability. And obviously, as in the case of Walt, it was true. He went on to become a spectacular accountant, legendary in this instance. Now, here's the problem, though, today with getting your CPA. Back when I was in college, you only needed a bachelor's degree. All right. Back in Walt's day, you didn't even need that. Now, within the time I went to college, which is not that long, we're talking less than 20 years, the requirements just to sit for the CPA exam has increased multifold. Now you need a certain amount of master's classes, and it depends on what state you're in. I was going to go through the state, but I'm just going to summarize it because there's like a website you can go to. Click on the state and it'll tell you. But no matter what state you click on, invariably it's like, well, you must have a bachelor's degree, and then you need 30 master's hours credits, or 60, or 90. Some, it's starting to get to the point where it's like you need to have a master's degree. And then not only that, some of them require like a year's worth of work in the field. You need to, what was the other one? You need to have like some, I think one even had volunteer work or something like that. In other words, it's progressive credentialism. You don't get this meritocracy where you get to be Walt Coughskey, come in at the age of 19, sit for the CPA exam, prove the world you know your shit, and then you get to go work. No, you need to work more. You need to get a bachelor's degree. We need master's classes, and now we have to have you volunteer. Man, here's a knife. Cut open your veins and give us some blood. Right? Now, the other thing, add to that, is when you do get your CPA, like all these fucking certifications nowadays, now you need to have CPE, continuing education, because you're just stupid. You're just stupid. Just because you passed it doesn't mean you know anything. You lost. I mean, a year goes by, you've forgotten it all. Especially if you're working. You have to continually educate. Continual education. Bleed some more blood to the education industry. And that's bullshit too. So what it basically boils down to is the CPA worth getting anymore? And frankly, young lieutenants and children, no, it isn't. Now, for some people it is. For some people, if you like accounting, let's understand, accounting is very boring. CPA work is really boring. I mean, it's high-end, and yes, down the road, CPAs are the ones to be in charge of companies, usually become CFOs, they become CEOs. So like maybe when you're 50 or 55, it pays off. But if I were to look at it today as a young kid, and I got to say, okay, how am I going to invest not only my money, tuition dollars, but my time? No, it isn't worth it. For most of you, it's not going to be worth it because you got to get your undergrad. Then you got to get essentially a master's. I bet you by the time you graduate, let's say you're 18 and you're going to college, you're starting to go to college. By the time you graduate with your undergrad, a lot of these states and these CPA boards are going to require you get your master's, if not as much credits that you might as well get your master's. And then the perpetual requirements that you can it's not like you're committing yourself to constantly going back to school with these continual education requirements, or these CPA requirements, or CPE requirements. And that's not worth it. It just isn't worth it. Yes, you're going to make a lot of money, but it's just not worth the time. So I would, just get your bachelor's degree in accounting and become a staff accountant. But truthfully, for the excitement of work, I don't even think that's worth it anymore. There are other opportunities. I would definitely go into the trades. It's more interesting. You could get your degree in 2 years. You could get an apprenticeship. You could get certifications. You don't have to go to school. You just go and become a mechanic. You go and have dad teach you how to weld. There are so many better things and higher rates of return for the time and money in the trades and in other fields that I would say that the CPA is no longer worth getting. It's a lot like the CFA, where it's like, fuck you, I'm not looking at requirements to get your CFA. It's like, that's a racket. That is a freaking racket. So anyway, for all you young people, it's still not a bad field. Accounting's not the worst field to get into. It pays, but given how mind-numbing boring it is, and given that they're making it into a racket, they're like a guild protecting themselves. Like, we can't have too many CPAs. It can't be based on merit. No, we got to make them jump through hoops. That's slowly becoming a racket too. So, slight change of advice to my book Worthless, or my advice in general. Is it the worst thing to get a CPA? No. It's going to be better than getting your degree in sociology or social work, certainly. But I would say it's not worth your time or your effort. You could do better things, more productive things, and have a much better higher. Go to the Bakken oil. Shoot, you're 18, you graduate from high school, go work in the Bakken oil field for 3 years. You'll forget. Let's put it this way. This will be a more interesting way. You and someone who's going to go get their CPA, put them side by side. You're 18, you go work in the Bakken. That kid's got to go 6 years, get a year's worth of experience, 7 years, finally able to sit for the CPA. He 7 years you working in the Bakken oil field with take home that pay, say, $50,000. That's $350,000. That kid who went and got his CPA probably has, $150,000 in debt. So by the time you're in your mid-20s, you already have enough money for a house. And that kid has got to bust his ass off for the next 4 or 5 years to to pay back his debt. I mean, it just isn't worth it anymore. So that's all we got. Toodles.